Hello and welcome back to AB in Focus. Today we turn the conversation towards the energy sector. Now, the Middle East is already home to the giants of the world when it comes to energy, but the minds have obviously turned towards addressing the conversation around the energy transition. Helping unpack this topic with us here today, we have Andrea Lovato, Executive Vice President and Global Head of Hydrogen for ACWA Power. Andrea, thank you for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Matthew.
So to start with, perhaps we could address the conversation point of how it comes to the Middle East and the energy transition. Is the Middle East a hub for the energy transition?
Very much, I will say. The Middle East has been an hub of energy transition for the last 10 years. Actually, has been leading the energy transition in terms of price reduction, cost reduction of power, in terms of solar and wind. And the fact, obviously, there is a very high resource in this part of the world. But also developers have been very active, like I would say ACWA Power, in really pushing the envelope of the energy transition. So we can say that it's today the Middle East really lead on in terms of what is renewables, and I would say as well in terms of hydrogen.
It's interesting that you bring hydrogen into the conversation there, because that is just one facet of the energy transition and how we address the problems of energy in the future. Already, countries in the Middle East have placed multi-billion-dollar bets on hydrogen and on green hydrogen as a future fuel. Do you see those bets as sustainable? Are we going to see the Middle East producing green hydrogen in sufficient quantities?
Absolutely. I think there are three important aspects in the Middle East in terms of hydrogen. And we talk about green hydrogen. Green hydrogen, obviously, 75% of the cost of hydrogen is power to produce hydrogen, because you produce hydrogen dissociating the water with electrolyzer, and to do that you use renewables. So the first aspect is in this part of the world you have high resource, so this is justify this big investment. The second is that obviously you have two other aspects that are important. For doing renewable you need to have a lot of land, and this part of the world are also a lot of land. So the second aspect is important. And the third, when we talk about obviously the MENA region, but specifically the Gulf, is the rating of the countries. The rating of the countries in the kingdom, in the UAE, for example, is very high. And this satisfies the fact that these countries, they will deliver low cost of financing. All three aspects that they will lead to a low cost of hydrogen that is produced and export out of this region.
So my understanding, green hydrogen is hydrogen that's created from green renewable technologies, one of which I suppose is solar power. And obviously we're in a part of the world which gets a lot of sunlight. Does that also help the Middle East in its use case for green hydrogen?
Yes, absolutely. It's not only solar. You need to consider this part of the world a lot of wind as well. The project that we develop in the northern part of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in NEOM, together with our partner Air Products and NEOM, it's an area where you have a lot of sustainable wind during the day. So the resource that you will use during the day, you will use sun, and in the evening when the sun is not available, you use the wind. And this allows you to really have very low cost of hydrogen produced out of the region in large quantities. The project that we do is the first one of many others that will be addressed to export green hydrogen to area utilization, for example, Europe or US.
And how is the cost ratio in terms of exporting hydrogen? Has that been solved? Are we going to be able to export hydrogen? How are we going to see it happening?
I would say today what you will do in terms to export hydrogen, you will do ammonia. Ammonia is the way that it's the low cost form today to export hydrogen from A to B. Because obviously you need to put it in ships that already exist, and then you bring it to Europe. For example, our NEOM project will bring it to Europe or to US, and there is dissociated again in terms of splitting again the hydrogen for the nitrogen, and the hydrogen then is used in that specific case for transportation. What it counts is obviously the cost that you have the hydrogen at the pump when this hydrogen is pumped to the lorries or to the trucks or to the buses. In that case, that hydrogen is already lower in terms of cost than what was the cost of the diesel before the crisis, before the Ukrainian crisis. So this is a very good point that say already the hydrogen to be produced, because the plant is in construction, out of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is already competitive to previous era of energy. And we know now the cost of energy was growing quite a bit. So it's a very good news for the starting of the energy transition.
And obviously, there's not just green hydrogen. There's a veritable rainbow of hydrogens out there. We've got blue hydrogen, pink hydrogen, etc., etc. Can you talk about those use cases as well?
Yeah. I would say today we have, as you mentioned, a lot of people talking about hydrogen and hydrogen in different forms. But at the end of the day, hydrogen is always the same, is hydrogen, is H2. And what it counts is how you produce hydrogen in terms of the impact of CO2 used to produce hydrogen. For example, green hydrogen is the hydrogen that has the lowest impact on CO2 because it's produced by renewables. And then obviously you have electrolyzer. There will be maybe some impact in relation to the transportation, but that is the real end target that we look for the 2050. The other, the blue, that is also very important in the region, is produced by steam reforming. You take the gas obviously is sequestrated, and then with the steam reforming, the CO2 goes in the ground, and obviously the hydrogen that you produce is produced still from gas, but has much less impact because the CO2 emission is not there anymore. Obviously, the CO2 is still there, so there is a different component of carbon in the hydrogen. So I would say in the future, rather than talking about colors, we will evolve to a situation where we'll have hydrogen associated at the quantity of CO2 that is in the product. Very similar to what is the unleaded petrol today, that you will have 95 octane or 98 octane. Will evolve to a situation like that. And that will show that the end target obviously will be the carbonized society without CO2. But to reach that point, we will have different product with the highest value, that is the green hydrogen, or call it very low carbon hydrogen, that this region is already able to produce at low cost.
That actually raises quite an interesting problem, I suppose, because we're talking about a technology and a fuel which is still, at the moment, a future commodity in terms of a global supply chain. How do you develop those conversations in terms of disseminating hydrogen with the understanding that this green hydrogen is got a much lower CO2 count than, say, blue hydrogen, because they're both hydrogen when you use them?
I think the end user is very much aware today what is the CO2 contents on the different products. And I will say also the cost of, let's do some numbers just to be exemplificative today. To produce green hydrogen from renewables 20 years ago was $1,000 per megawatt hour. I'll give you the megawatt hour because it's easy to compare with the gas cost. 10 years ago, 800, not much difference. But the reduction of cost of the renewable that specific this region has done, and the fact that how to integrate this to produce hydrogen with the electrolyzer, has brought today generally as a market between $100 and $200 per megawatt hour. And you will see what is the price today of the gas in Europe. That will be between 100 and 300 euro actually per megawatt hour. So the product is already competitive. We don't have enough capacity today built to really put the product in the market.
So beyond the region exporting hydrogen for use elsewhere in the world, could production of hydrogen help the region address some of its own challenges in the future? Say, for instance, water scarcity and water desalination?
I think two different things, because obviously green hydrogen, you produce it from water, and you need water as a raw product. But fortunately, the impact, the amount of water that you use for produce a large quantity of hydrogen is not relevant. It's not a major part of the cost of these plants, and as well the impact that this plant have in the environment. As well, our project in NEOM is using desalinations. And as you know, NEOM has a very strict program of sustainable desalination, or that means that it's either using renewable for power and desalination, and as well not rejecting brine with a high level of salt or temperature in the sea. So this is all addressed by this aspect. So I would say the water scarcity is another issue, and is very much related to energy transition and very much related to climate change. And we have seen what has happened in Europe this year with not many rains, lot of issues with water scarcity. And I think this will be the next step. The impact of the water scarcity is something that will impact not this region, only this region. This region has been impacted a long time as water scarcity, but also the rest of the world. What is the difference in this region? That desalinations already exist. Desalination taking water from the sea and producing water from fresh water from the sea for human consumption, and also reusing the water that has been utilized and use that for irrigation, for example. This region has done that for many decades. And today you can do desalination using renewables. So the impact is low. ACWA Power as well has been at the forefront. Today we are the largest desalinator in the world. And in that aspect, we reduce as well the cost of the desalination. Today in the UAE, we can produce desalinated water with 40% of solar energy. So a very, let's say, an energy transition there as well that helps the other aspect, the water scarcity.
So, I mean, you said 40% there. The inevitable question is going to be, when do we see that number rise further?
I would say it depends by the technology. There are a lot of new technology that are intrinsically using renewables for doing the desalination. They are not there yet. We are working as well on R&D together with partners on that, and they will come. But I think it's also a very good integration on the fact that we can really still use renewable for powering the existing reverse osmosis. And more renewable you will have in the network, more the network will be like a battery. So more the network can also deliver the renewable resource in the night. And in that way, you will have less impact in terms of, let's say, fossil fuel to produce desalinated water.
I want to take a moment here and address a slightly different part of the energy transition. And I'm talking about talent. How do we address the problem of talent? Do you have the right minds in the Middle East? Are you attracting the right minds?
I would say talent is an issue, generally, globally, and is an issue compared to the number that the energy transition needs to reach. The two big pillars of the energy transition are the electrification. Today, as you know, the world is 26,000 terawatt-hour produced electricity. In 2050, the requirement is 95,000 terawatt-hours. So it's a huge shift, a huge investment, and that requires a lot of people. Same for the hydrogen. The region has been blessed on the fact that there is a lot of young people well educated. I think the region has invested very well in the education of their own people, specific this region, specifically the Gulf. And this is very much our help, I would say. Being a local developer, we have a lot of this big pool of talent. But indubitably, the talent will be a problem for the support in all this extent of energy transition globally.
I mean, we are talking at a time where the UAE and Saudi Arabia have both made reforms to their own visa programs, making it easier, I suppose, to work and live in countries. Do you think that also plays a role in the talent equation?
Absolutely. Absolutely plays a role to attract good talent. And as well as being a local developer with a global footprint, support really to have the talent important. But also it's very important that and this is our specific policy, in any country that where we invest with the local people, because the sustainability you have it only if you really develop the ecosystem that is around your plants. And that very much depends communities, people. So it's a new concept. The energy transition doesn't remain only to do a new plant that is renewable, but it's all the concept around that. And this is the innovation that we'll say this period brings to us.
Right, thank you for that. I'd like to spend the latter half of our conversation here today addressing Saudi Arabia specifically. Saudi Arabia is an energy giant, home to the world's biggest producer of energy. Talk to me about, I mean, you've already mentioned NEOM. I know your firm has involvements there as well. Talk to me about green hydrogen, specifically when it comes to Saudi Arabia.
I said before, the potential of the kingdom is enormous in terms of what is the resource and the land available, the ecosystem that already exists, because obviously it's an ecosystem that is very used to build complex plant and as well trade on this oil and gas. And at the end of the day, obviously, you will produce new fuel that is a molecule. And a lot of the things and the lesson learned that were from the era of the fossil fuel will be also utilized from the hydrogen. So all this point together that the kingdom has enormous potential to transit from an era of fossil fuel to an era of being the leader of the energy transition. And energy transition doesn't mean only hydrogen, it will be also electron. We'll come to an era that we will be able to, in 10 years from now, to export electrons and at the same time export hydrogen or interchangeability between the two. And the kingdom is also central. Obviously, the hydrogen you can export it by ships, but also you can connect the kingdom to an utilizer that in Europe you can connect by cables, you can connect the kingdom by pipeline to Europe, really bringing all this potential to a reality very close to your clients.
I suppose it's almost, as you said, it's still a fuel at the end of the day, and the kingdom has a huge institutional knowledge and know-how when it comes to fuels. Is that what we're driving at here?
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, when we talk about molecule, it's there is an ability to understand what molecules, when put in fuel cell in this case instead of combustion engines, will have. So the kingdom has an advantage there. Plus all the other advantages that we said before.
I mean, and the kingdom is also home to an ambitious Vision 2030 program. What kind of role does green hydrogen play when it comes to Vision 2030?
Is one part of the transition, obviously, to Vision 2030, as the renewables are a part of the transition. And the other aspect is you need to do a lot of, let's say, gigawatt hour of renewables, and you need to also produce a lot of electrolyzer. To do that is a new industry that you need to build around that, and the localization of the industry will become something very key to build on this plant. For example, we don't have capacity of electrolyzer around the world that is able to support this growth, and the kingdom does what is really required, really to attract not only having the ability to build these plants and have the land and the resource to build this plant and producing competitive hydrogen, also competitive renewables to export as electron, but also investing in the supply chain. Because supply chain will be key to produce all this capacity. And the security around the supply chain was the first country that will be able to secure large supply chain. We have seen with China in relation to the photovoltaic development will be the leader in the country in transition in the future.
So Saudi Arabia is the green hydrogen hub of the future. Its energy ecosystem will be ready first. Is that what you're...
One of those, and I think one of the one that is very well placed in relation to geography, and if all this aspect that we have mentioned before will play together, obviously the kingdom will be destined to be the leader globally on the new energy that is molecule and electrons.
Okay, I think we're talking about quite a new technology here, right? It is still overall as an energy industry nascent. How do you maintain innovation on that? You as a firm are one of the partners who are driving green hydrogen. How do you put innovation first?
One might is the fact that is new technologies, hydrogen. In effect, hydrogen has been around for decades, for many years. Grey hydrogen is produced, obviously, and trade. What is new is how you produce it with electrolyzer that has been around for 100 years. Electrolyzer, even for producing hydrogen, has been in operation at smaller scale for 50 years as well. The new things here is how you put this together and how you reconcile the variability of the renewables that are variable because the resource is variable with the need of operating as much as in base load for the downstream processes. And this is the new, let's say, the new innovation that comes here and the new innovation that comes with building this plant with experience. And ACWA Power partners have been working on that. Then obviously there is how the cost reduction of hydrogen will happen. And part of this obviously is how electrolyzer will evolve in terms of technology roadmap, efficiency, better efficiency, lower cost. there is quite a bit of attentions, also because there you need to build capacity. And we are very attentive to what is happening in the market. We incubate some of the new technology, test new technology in cooperation with the very good university that we have in the kingdom. KAUST, for example, is a very good university with very lot of bright minds, but also the top of the art equipment. So this cooperation, we are fostering this cooperation in order really to look at new technology, and this new technology oriented to have a real commercial application to reduce the cost of green hydrogen and come to this famous $1 per kilo that everybody talk about.
All right, thank you. So final question from me, big meaty question for you here. We've got big plans in the region. The UAE said it's going to be net zero by 2050. Saudi Arabia, I believe, said by 2060. Talk to me about the green future of the Middle East. What is your idea? How is it going to look, and how far along are we on this trajectory?
I would say we are fortunate. I think it's us working in this sector, because we do something that has an exciting effect. You see the effect, and you have seen the effect in the past 10 years. So the impact of the renewable, especially in this region. And you do something good for the humanity at the same time. So what we will see in the future, obviously we'll see more and more of renewables. Renewables is today the lowest cost to produce energy globally in many countries, certainly in this part of the world. Obviously you will need to have that dispatchable. Big example in the UAE by ACWA Power with this project, Noor Energy One, that is a thermosolar project that collects sun heat during the day and then dispatch energy during the night from the sun 24/7. So this is an innovation that is brought to the market. So there will be more on that. And I will say that together with that, there will be a lot more of distributed. Because distributed will be very important as well. You will have your car that is electrical, connected to the network, and in the night when you don't use maybe the batteries, your batteries will go use for powering a building somewhere in the north of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with the energy that is in the UAE. So a lot of interconnection, a lot of distributed, a democratization of the energy that maybe we want to see it. So it's a new era, complete new era that we are entering 10 years ago, and we are really in the middle to shape this new future.
Well, on that very positive note, Andrea, it just exists for me to thank you for joining us here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.